So last week I talked about the 9x9 board post-it notes that I have put up on store.starpointpaduk.com, and I told you guys I have a copy of the post-it notes myself, and I was doing a Sumego or life and death problem, and I was brushing my teeth while I was doing it, and I wanted to just try to read it out, and it was really tricky. So I was about to go to bed and I wanted to turn off my computer, but I still wanted to work on this problem, and I wanted a way to bring the problem with me. And I realized I had these notes, so I wrote down the problem on the grid, turned off my computer, and then I stuck the note on the wall, and I could just stare at it and try to solve it. And then it's also a reminder, if I don't solve it in time, then the next day I still have it on the wall and I'm able to work on it. So it's an interesting use for the notepad. I didn't even think of that as being one of the uses that I would be using it for, but it's really cool because I can just have it on the wall and it's just there, and I can see it every day. It's not like on your phone where you have to open up the Sumego app or whatever and look for the problem. If there's a problem that you like and you want to work on it over a few days, or you want to basically review the problem again and again until it's just in your brain, super ingrained, it's a good use for it. And a couple of you have already ordered a few pads, so I think it's a decent use for a sticky pad. So if that's something you're interested in, go check it out at store.starpointpaduk.com. You're listening to Starpoint, the show about Go, for Go fans away from the board. And I have a huge announcement to make. I played a game of Go. I've been playing correspondence games, of course, but it's been a long time since I actually played a live time game. And this past week, I just said, what the heck, I'm going to play a game on Fox. Last time I played a live game, I lost, and I was a little discouraged. And the longer you go without playing a game, I think the longer that anxiety starts to creep up on you. You're worried about whether you lost your skills, you got rusty, and you don't want to find out whether you are going to be just terrible at the game, and then you have to work your way back up. And so, all these thoughts kind of eating at me, and I'm trying to beat down those thoughts by telling myself, hey, stop thinking of this as the, a final tournament game or something like that. Just think of it as a training game, right? You just go for it. You just try your best during the game, but it's just one game, right? You got to keep playing games in order to get better at Go. So I gave myself the opportunity to play a game, and I actually won the game, and I was really, really happy with how I played. Just a little review of what the game went, how the game went. In the beginning of the game, I had this huge corner loss because, I played the Joseki. I think I played the Joseki a lot better than my opponent, but a little bit later on, as we're approaching the mid game, my opponent played a move over there that I thought was not sente. I said, "Oh wow, that's a passing move," and I'm gonna go play somewhere else, and I tanuki'd, and it was actually a sente move, and I miscalculated the liberty count, and I lost the capturing race where I had previously won the capturing race, and it was basically his corner 100%, and that's a pretty devastating loss. But noticing how my opponent was playing, I could have resigned at that point, but there was so much open space left on the board. If something like that were to happen on the flip side, I would regain my lead, right? So just wanted to see what I could do, see if I could turn this game around. And I was able to do so later on. I kind of played pretty solidly, and my opponent backed himself into a corner, not literally on the board, but was making some choices that caused problems for him. And eventually I turned out the winner. Fox is a great place for practicing like wacky moves and going off Joseki, because my opponent was like that. Completely did not play regular Joseki moves. And if you play solely on OGS or even in tournaments, most of these players are very by the book in my experience. They play the enclosure, they play the Joseki, the set Josekis that they know, and they don't really play crazy things. They don't attach like randomly and things like that. Fox players, they will kind of, if you've never played that kind of style of Go, you will go on Fox and you will be in for a surprise. So if you haven't had that experience, you don't know how to handle those things, it's a good way to practice. And I think one of the big pieces of advice that I've heard that helped me throughout the game, and kind of, again, this was a Fox game. If you've listened before, you know that I like to play the fast games on Fox. So like 5 minutes plus 3 periods of 30-second Byoyomi. So it's a relatively fast game. And I've noticed like what happens with me when I don't play live games for a long time. I end up losing the game because I failed to keep certain groups safe and connected. I just kind of neglect certain groups a little bit, and because it's happening so fast, I can't give all my time to every group that I have on the board, and I sometimes lose track, which is kind of what happened to my opponent in this game, where they kind of lost track of certain groups that they had on the board, and they ended up backing themselves into a corner. But what helped me not do that this time, well, first of all, I was very conscious that I know that I do that when I come back to the game. So I tried not to do that. But one thing that I've heard was that Q players play moves to fix current problems, and Don players play moves to prevent future problems. So while I was playing, I was considering my options at every juncture, and I thought, this move or that move, right? This move or that move. And I thought, you know what? This move, I want to play this move, but I feel like I remember having problems with that move in the future. You after a while, after losing so many games, this is a saying we have, to lose as many games as you can, as fast as you can. I think, some people say 50, some people say 100, some people say 500. But I think one of the things is that once you've lost so many games, you start to see the bigger picture of what is causing your losses, because that's what makes Go so hard, right? It's not always obvious what your mistakes are in the game. Actually, it's very unobvious most of the time, and you don't know what you did wrong that made things, turn out the way they did. But you play enough games, you get enough problems in your games, you start to realize that certain choices that you make lead into problems and weaknesses down the road. And I find myself thinking about that when I play, especially at this fast time setting, because I definitely don't want to create for myself any problems that I have to do some massive reading to get through, right? If I maybe play something a little bit ambitious in a correspondence game and my opponent decides to exploit that kind of overplay, maybe, I can maybe spend some time to try to resolve that situation and see it before it starts getting to be a huge issue. But, in this 5-minute main time kind of game, things can change really quickly, and you don't always have the time to secure everything. And so what you want to do is play prophylactic moves. It's a common term in the chess world. We don't really say it as Go players as much, but I think a lot of our moves are prophylactic, and by playing solidly and playing good shape, we kind of allow ourselves to relax a little bit and play, use our brains to focus on more critical moments. I think it's different from just simply playing solidly all the time and just being as solid as you can, because that comes into the danger of being too slow. I think the balance here is to raise your desire to play fast and keep your ambition to play fast, play moves that are quickly developing, moves that are aggressive, and moves that are not super conservative, and keeping that attitude alive, but also being restrained by your experiences and being reasonable about how far you go in that endeavor. because you can obviously go one way or another, right? You can go too fast, too aggressive, too overplayed, and you can go too safe. So the balance is to try to go as efficiently and as fast as possible, but also be held back by some of the wisdom that you've collected along the way. So I was really happy about this game. I was glowing for the next few days. It's just a simple Fox game, and my opponent, he resigned basically near the end of the game. I didn't expect it. I didn't expect the resignation at that moment because I hadn't done a count of the board. I didn't use Fox has a estimate score option that maybe, a bad habit if some people use it during the game constantly to try to check the score, but I generally just go off of intuition of who I think is winning, but sometimes it's useful if you're about to resign and you just want to make absolute sure that it's a resignation game. These quick games, it's really hard to count, right? So anyway, I was really happy with the win because especially since it's the first game coming back and I want to play more, and I forgot how thrilling it could be and how focused I can be playing a Go game. But one thing that I really learned, and I think losing typically teaches you more about Go and how to do better next time. But one thing that this game really validated for me was some of the studying that I've been doing in the recent months. And it kind of gave me a new perspective in that I've always been someone who searched for the grind, the one thing that I can keep doing to improve at the game. Let me just sit down and do this thing for an hour and then I'll get good at the game, right? That's the kind of approach that I've always looked for. Like, if you tell me to do Joseki study for hours, then I'll do that. If you tell me to do Life and Death, I'll do that, right? And I mean, that is kind of one of the most common things. Like, a lot of people say, like, if you want to get better at Go, you should study Life and Death. You should do Sumego problems. You should do a lot of those. And I think that is true. But one thing that this game taught me was that all of those things that you do, they come together and they harmonize together into playing a good game of Go. And all these things came alive to me while I was playing. And so I wanted to just kind of go, this isn't going to be anything new for anybody in terms of like what you should be doing in terms of getting better. I think you'll know everything here that I'm going to list, but I want to give you a flavor of each of these things and how it kind of came out during the game in ways that I didn't necessarily expect all the time. First thing, the Joseki that I just kind of mentioned here. Studying Joseki, this, I mean, I don't know. I think the problem with Joseki study is that there's so many of them. And then, especially since if you study one variation branch of tons of other branches in that variation, and you keep doing that, and then you play a game and you don't encounter that variation, it just seems like a huge waste of time, right? Like, you spent all this time studying this Joseki, and that Joseki didn't even come up in your game. So it's like, why even bother? Which is why it's kind of a cumulative thing. You have to study all sorts of Joseki for a long period of time and expose yourself to a lot of Joseki, and that's going to take a long time. But eventually, you'll get to a point where you'll study enough of those that you'll start to encounter them in your game more often. And you'll see like, oh, this is something that I didn't know before. Now I'm encountering in the game after I've studied it. And when it does happen, it'll give you this really good footing for the game. And you'll see if your opponent knows or doesn't know the Joseki. It'll be very apparent right away. Unless they're, of course, just playing non-Joseki on purpose. But that gives you this confidence and a foundation to play the rest of your game. And I think the rest of the game, you can kind of doubt yourself. You play a move, your opponent plays something that you didn't expect. Maybe you'll kind of be taken aback and you'll be like, hold on, is this something that I didn't see, or is this just wrong? And you can kind of doubt yourself in that way. But with Joseki, if your opponent just completely plays off Joseki, at that point, something's up, right? Your opponent doesn't really know what to do in the situation or what's supposed to be done. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be always easy to handle what your opponent does. You still have to figure out what the best move is, and your opponent's move may not actually be very bad, even though it's off Joseki. But I found it to be a very good framework for starting off the game, and it's not just Joseki, right? It's mid-game sequences, if you can find any of those to study, and invasion patterns and things like that. And if you can add those things and review those throughout your studies, it'll give you a noticeable edge in your game. And that happened in this game where I was starting to play a Joseki. My opponent completely went off kilter, and I thought, okay, so we're doing this. We're not doing the Joseki here. So there's probably an advantage to be had here, right? Joseki is like the best play, the most optimal play. So what I did was I looked at the situation and figured out, okay, what normally happens? What do I normally get in the situation during the actual Joseki? And is there something more I can get? How much is enough for me? I think, because on the other hand, if you study Joseki, a lot of times you can actually lose strength, and there's a proverb like that, study Joseki to lose 2 stones of strength or something like that. And that comes from actually trying to squeeze too much value out of their Joseki off play than you deserve, I think. This has happened to me a lot. I see somebody play something that's off Joseki, and I think that it's so bad that I must get some kind of crazy benefit from it, and I force something, and I end up being actually worse off. So you got to be careful, and you need a lot of practice with it. But studying Joseki, it takes a while to pay off. But if you study it regularly, I think eventually you start seeing the benefits. Also, during this game, my life and death grind came into action. Now, this is, I used to hate studying life and death, but this has been one of my favorite ways to study Go recently. I love doing really interesting life and death problems and just staring at a problem and trying to read it out and trying to build my muscle in reading, right? My reading muscle in the brain, wherever that is. But doing this over and over again and going through a variety of different styles of problems, that really came into action during this game when I was looking at the board. Now, remember, this is a 5-minute game with 30-second Byoyomi. Now, I don't really do life and death problems that take 30 seconds to solve very much. I do a couple to warm up. There's a couple of really easy ones that take no time at all for me to solve, but most of the time I will do life and death problems that take a while. Like I need to stare at it. I need to read a whole bunch of variations out, and I try to do that. And that kind of activity I can't use during this kind of quick game. But after doing all those problems, there are other things that came into play. A lot of shapes you kind of understand and start to know very on recognition with life and death. And those things definitely came into play during the game. And also the process of killing or living, it's something that you learn while doing life and death. Obviously, there's the very standard methods of Hane and surround from the outside, and then do the killing point in the group. That's like the basic way to kill a group. But if you do enough life and death problems, you'll notice certain moves tend to be good candidates for the solution. Sometimes it's like a particular shape point that you've seen before. And so you'll be drawn to those immediately just because you know after doing so many that these are good candidates to try out for reading and killing. And with the game like this, where there's not much time to read, all that knowledge actually came into play very well for me, because I was able to just kind of look at it, and I wasn't able to read everything out 100%, but I was able to go, okay, you know what? This move feels right to me. And that kind of feeling right came from my previous studies of life and death. So a lot of the heuristic and pattern recognition knowledge from Life and Death came into play, and just being able to intuit what the right move may be. A lot of times these are guesses, but sometimes your guesses are right. And if you can guess well, it's a good strength to have in your game. Obviously, if you have the time to read, that's what you should do. But if you don't have the time, the better guesser may win. Another thing that I noticed that came into play during this game is my review of past mistakes and games. And specifically in terms of when I'm reviewing my game and I look at a turning point in the game or a huge loss that I took on in the game, and I find that the reason is a tactical reason. So some kind of misread, some kind of lacking knowledge of how stones may be connected, lacking shape knowledge. There was a specific game that I remember reviewing one time, and I found out like there was a way to disconnect this certain shape, a series of one space jumps in a certain situation. And I looked at that and I was like, wow, I really didn't see how this could be disconnected. And I reviewed it, and I made sure to review it again and go back to it and remind myself of how that shape works. And that shape kind of came up in this game. And it's not exactly the same thing, but it looked similar enough that it made me consider it. And that disconnection was vital into winning the game for me here. So reviewing your kind of big moments in your games can really come into play in future games. And at least I think sometimes we don't study these things because we think like, hey, every game is so unique. It's never going to happen exactly this way again. Why go through all the effort of studying this so much? The thing is that a lot of situations may not happen exactly that way, but a lot of situations happen in a very similar way. And when that similar way happens, it starts beeping on your radar. It starts to go off, and you may pay attention to that area more than you would normally because you've studied that and you know that something may or may not happen with that. I think that if I hadn't studied that specific situation, I may not have given too much thought to that area. Of course, if you give me the game and you say, hey, look around at the game and try to figure something out, maybe I'll figure it out eventually. But the fact that I had reviewed that shape before and I was somewhat familiar with it, it really made me kind of go toward it. And there's only so much reading time in the game. And I have to figure out what spots of the boards are hot spots. And to be able to recognize that was really, really good. So I've talked about this before, but one way you can do this is to review your game and then find those critical turning point moments. And then especially if they're tactical, what you want to do is maybe cut and paste that SGF branch into a new file. Comments maybe something like white to play, how can white disconnect this group, or something like that. And then write out all the variations through the SGF. And then save that as a problem file that you can always go back to and review. You'd be surprised how quickly we forget things. If sometimes I write down a problem that I have, and I think I have a pretty good grasp on it, and then a month or two later, I'll come back to it and I'll stare at it like I've never even seen it before. So it's important to go back and make sure you've actually learned something, because if you go back to the problem every time and you don't know the solution and it's not coming to you quickly, then you really haven't learned it, right? Because how are you going to remember in a game if you don't remember on the problem file? Another way, actually the way that I actually did this one was through AI Sensei, because they have a feature where while you're reviewing the game, you can click a button to create a problem out of that, and then you can shuffle your problems and go through them. So there are a couple options of doing that, reviewing tactical failures. So that is one other way that came out as a beneficial thing for me during this game. Another thing that you all know, I like to play correspondence games, and that actually came into play as well during this game. Correspondence games are great for the big picture stuff because you have all the time in the world. You can stare at a board and really evaluate every little thing, which is why it's a pro and it's a con, right? Because it's a con because I think I kind of get analysis paralysis with correspondence games, and it's exhausting sometimes to really think about all the different things that go into a move. It's like, do you want to make sure this group is alive, and then is it the most valuable thing to do on the board? And there's so many other places on the board. You have to evaluate every local area. And then you can also do a count of the number of points that you guys have. And that takes a really, really long time. And there are so many things you can do to put more into every move. You can't do enough thinking for a move. But one thing that's great about it is it really helps you zoom out all the time, because when you're playing fast games, you tend to be super local-eyed. Your eyes just fixate on what you're currently doing. But with correspondence games, you don't have a rush, so you can kind of back off, look at the game, look at what's important, make sure you sacrifice what you need to sacrifice, play lightly, and things like that. And so with that practice, it came up during this game where I was able to kind of put myself in that mentality quite frequently, backing off of what is going on locally and just asking myself what's worth doing on the board. And that actually helped me stay grounded. And like the big corner loss that I mentioned in the beginning, I was able to just move on from that pretty quickly because I wasn't used to tunnel visioning, because I was used to playing correspondence games, because those things, they don't really tend to be games where I tunnel vision as much. The last thing, so those are all the great things that I think happened during the game. I was thinking about it during the game, all these little things that they just started popping up while I was playing the game. And it just gave me flashbacks to all the stuff that I've been studying this whole time. And it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't like I've been doing all this life and death problem stuff lately, and so my reading was on point, and that's how I won the game. It was like a combination of all these different areas. What I haven't been doing is playing fast games on Fox. And I've noticed that there are some skills here that I could use. And playing fast games, I think, is an addition to all these other study methods. And one of the things that I think I struggled with is choosing what to read. So being able to read is a skill I can grow with the life and death problems and the correspondence games, because I can just stare at the stones and read as much as I want before I play a move. But when I'm playing a fast game, I really can't. I don't have the time to do that. So I have to choose what to read. Let's say I see like 5 different branches that I could read, and I have to choose one branch or another. I have like not time. I have not time to read all of the branches. And I found myself in a situation during one part of the game where there were 2 branches I wanted to read, and I had to choose one. And my instincts led me to choose one of these branches, and I chose the wrong branch. After reviewing the game, I realized that the other branch I could have just read out and played a better move from reading that branch. So that kind of intuition, I think it really takes practice. I don't know exactly if playing a lot of fast games will help you with that. But another thing that fast games I think will help you with, because this game really tested my shape intuition, whether you can play a shape this way or that way while staying connected, what shapes are disconnectable, things like that. I think I can kind of feel the lack of practice that I've had with this kind of stuff. So I think playing fast games is another thing that you add to your training repertoire. And one thing I didn't mention that I also noticed during this game that helped me out was my recent study and memorization of pro games. There were some situations in the game that arose because I had seen similar patterns in the pro games that I had studied. I felt a lot more confident in what I was playing. I kind of knew how it was supposed to go and how things should turn out and what the direction I should be playing things in. Now this, it's like, you kind of have to take the pro games with a grain of salt a lot of times when you're studying, but sometimes when you recognize certain situations, it can really give you this sense of familiarity and being able to see that moment and say, oh, I've seen something like this before, it's also a huge help. Because sometimes we're just so lost while we're playing Go. We just look at the board and we're like, I have no idea what's going on, like what I'm supposed to do here. And if you've seen a couple of pro games go one way or another and you see that in your own game, it gives you a little idea of like, okay, I kind of have a feel for what could happen in this situation. And that gives you a lot of confidence to play out that kind of situation. So that definitely helped a moment or two in that game as well. So again, all these things, they somehow bubbled up during this game, and it was more dramatic because I hadn't played a fast game in so long that all of these things coming up after being dormant kind of is what it felt like, right? All these things I've been training for the past few months, and I suddenly started playing this live game, and all this new knowledge that I hadn't been using before I studied all this stuff, it started coming up during the game, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. Now, of course, one caveat here, I was very happy with the win, and I thought I had a very confident win. Obviously, that little hiccup in the beginning with the lost stones, I was able to recover from, but apparently I was losing more than I thought, according to AI. So, I still have a ways to go, but I was very happy that I won the game and that I believed in myself enough to pull through after the kind of blunder that I had in the beginning. So, I think that from now on, my approach to improvement is more holistic, and I want to kind of treat all of these areas of study as important for your game. Of course, some of them may be more important and impactful than others, but I think that it is very enjoyable to do all of these different things and synergize them together when you play a game and see that grow out of you. Let's learn to watch Paduk TV, where I teach you Korean words for Go terms that you can learn to recognize while watching Paduk TV. But today's a pop quiz day. I'm going to be testing you on the 3 words that I've taught you so far. I will be telling you the Korean word, and then you will tell me the English, in other words, Japanese term, because we use Japanese terms in English, for that word. So the first word is tanzu. Tanzu. If you said Atari, you are correct. Tanzu means Atari. The next one is 선수. 선수. If you said sente, you're correct. And bonus points if you can get the secondary meaning of that word, because sometimes that will be thrown in there and you may be thinking they're not talking about sente. If you say 선수 also can mean player or athlete, you are also correct. You get a bonus point there. And the final word I'm going to quiz you on right now is 정석. 정석. And that means Joseki. So let me know how you did on the quiz. I will be checking in and reviewing these terms every now and then to make sure you guys understand a little bit of what's going on in Paduk TV when you're watching. I think that when you're trying to learn things, you got to do it in the long run. So I'll be checking in with reviews on these terms every now and then. So hope you did well on the quiz. Playing that live time game on Fox, I had forgotten how much of a rush you can get playing Go and how deep and focused you can get. Because if you're just playing correspondence games all the time, you really don't have a chance to get into that flow state. Some of you may know what I'm talking about with flow state. It's a state of mind where you're completely absorbed in the task that you're doing and you feel like your whole body is working together and it feels really great. But in a correspondence game, you kind of catch it and it goes away and it's interrupted by life and it doesn't really feel the same. And I totally forgot that amazing feeling of playing a game with a time control. That's not in the length of days. But it also felt like a time capsule of sorts that I opened when I played the game because I had been studying all along in different ways. And when I played that game, all of the study that I had done started coming out in new ways that I had never experienced before, because I hadn't played a live game in so long. So those things didn't have a chance to come out other than in my correspondence game. So and they manifest themselves differently in that stage or in that mode of play. So I was really glad to play, and I definitely want to keep playing more live games. It's really hard to get back in when you have been out for so long. Maybe a lot of you are in that state where you haven't been playing, you just kind of listen to the podcast because you like Go and you want to talk about Go and you think about Go, but you just kind of don't feel like playing. Well, next time you get that whiff of inspiration to play, just go and hop in a casual game and see what happens, because it's a lot of fun, and I want to play more. But it's time for the DDK Advice Corner, and the tip of the day is beware of counter sente. Now, I don't think this is a real term. I don't know if there's an equivalent that I'm not thinking of, but I'm calling it counter sente because that's what I think it is the best description of it. So let me lay it down. You might be tempted to play a sente move. Obviously, you shouldn't play a sente move just because. That's like another DDK advice, pretty much. Don't just play sente moves because they're sente. Think about the outcome. But let's say you did evaluate the outcome, and you do like this sente move, and you do like the result of playing that sente move. Think carefully about what your opponent can do to respond to your sente move. And if they can respond with a move that is sente itself, that puts you back on gote. Because you play sente, and then they respond, but that response is sente and requires you to respond, and then that response is gote, then your opponent has just taken sente from you with a counter sente. So think carefully about the possible responses your opponent can have. Don't just look at the most obvious response for your sente move, and think about what other ways your opponent can respond. And likewise, if your opponent plays a sente move, don't just connect, don't just do the one obvious thing you see. Think about creative ways you can juice that move. So you can use counter sente yourself to steal the sente from your opponent as well. So the tip of the day is beware of counter sente. And now it's time for listener mail. Martin writes, "Hi Justin, as usual, thank you for your nice podcast. Every Monday I feel the sense of joy when a new episode arrives in my feed. Anyway, I want to tell you these two things." Okay, before I go on to the two things, I very much appreciate your support, Martin, and I very much enjoy every time you write in as well, so thank you. Episode 73 on Go variants. You made me play Zen Go. I have to say this is a wild way to play Go. We were 3 players ranked EGF 19Q, 7Q, and 2Q, so there was quite a gap between the players. For me, it was very interesting observing my own emotions. Every time you make a move, it's not on you to play the follow-up. You basically have to respond to your own moves 2 moves later. That means you cannot really be satisfied when you make a good move because you are the one to suffer on it. The continuous switching of sides was a wild roller coaster of emotions. Also, I observed the following. Every player had different ideas on what is important on the board. There were so many tanukis, I had the feeling no situation was remotely resolved before starting a new fight. Usually, when you play a 2-player game, the game feels like a conversation. This 3-player game felt like being at a party with a lot of noise everywhere, and you keep on constantly changing your conversation partners. However, what I really enjoyed was the fact that it felt like an even game until the end. Man, it was a wild ride. I highly recommend playing Zen Go. It was a great experience, and I will certainly do it again. Well, I'm really glad you enjoyed Zen Go. So if you guys don't know, haven't listened to episode 73 on Go variants, Zen Go is one of my favorite forms of Go, and it's not a game. It's really not, I don't think you can call it a game. It's when you have 3 players. I guess you could do it with any odd number of players, but I've never tried it with 5 or more. But 3 players, and you just take turns in a circle playing Go, and you don't have 3 colors. You have 2 colors, like in the regular game of Go, black and white. So what happens is you keep switching colors as you trade-off positions, and you basically have no ego in the game because you don't have a role. You're just this ghost spirit that puts down stones. And my vision of Zen Go was that it's a very relaxing and stress-free game because there's no winner or loser. It's just go. But it seems like your experience of it was a little more hectic and chaotic. And honestly, I've never played all the way to the end. So I think it seems like you went all the way to the end, which is very interesting. So I'd love to do that someday. Then you write on episode 77 on feeling helpless. So this is the learned helplessness episode, I believe. So first of all, these experiments seem really cruel, since still the results are interesting and good to know. So this actually pushed me to try to play more aggressive against stronger players. I lost big time. Still, it felt like a personal win for me. I just kept on telling myself, you can do this, you can do this. Also, if you really try to push yourself to not be intimidated by your opponent's rank, this helps big time when your opponent is just one or two stronger than you. Anyway, thanks for your great work. I enjoy your podcast very much. Greetings from Sahara Dusty, Austria, Martin. Thank you for your listener mail again. I really appreciate you writing in all the time. I thought you guys were all snowy and cold up there just like yesterday. Are you Sahara Dusty now? It's been warming up over here in California. It's been, I don't know, it's in that in-between phase where it's like up and down a little bit in the moody springtime phase where there's some overcast. But yeah, thanks again for writing in, Martin. And then regarding the helplessness stuff, yeah, I think I don't know if it really needs to be like the most conscious, like, oh yeah, so it's just myself that's blocking me and that's why I can't win against stronger players. But sometimes I think we get to the state of mind where it's just there that says, this voice that's just saying they're stronger than you, and that's like the biggest voice in your head. Maybe like quieting that down and putting, just seeing yourself as the next level already, right? It's like the whole fake it till you make it thing, and dress for the role you want, not the role that you have. So when you play a game and you're, let's say, 8Q, and you're trying to get to 7 or 6Q, and you're like, oh, I'm still 8Q, I got to work on all my 8Q mistakes. Maybe a change of mind, like a change of pace, maybe like to say, oh, you know what? I'm going to be 7Q, so I consider myself 7Q. I consider 7Qs my equal, even though right next to my name it says 8Q, and maybe that'll help. I don't know. I think there are a lot of different psychological tricks we can try. Thanks for your shared experience, Martin. And then Ren42 writes, read the title, 77, Escaping Learned Helplessness in the AI Era, and thought it was one of my technology/political subs. This is a Reddit commenter. As AI encroaches on more areas, we need this lesson for real life. Yeah, I agree. And that's, it's not just Go. That's why I couldn't just help but talk just about Go in that episode. It just kept on bleeding into other areas. This is like a new relationship that we have, like, as humans. There are many different approaches you can see already. I'm sure in your friend groups, somebody who just hates it and doesn't touch it. Somebody who's completely dependent on it and always uses it and asks questions to it all the time for every single area of life. There's got to be a balance, right? But ultimately, it is a tool, and we'll see what it changes to in the future. But for now, it is a good tool that you can make use of or not. But a lot of us, I think, kind of put it on a pedestal sometimes, and that's probably not the best idea. Thanks for writing in. And Sadaharu writes, when AlphaGo first beat Lee Sedol, some people said that the era of competitive Go is over. Look at where we are now. We are more alive than ever. That's just kind of a funny thing to say. I was not as on the pulse of the Go world when that happened, so I don't really know what people were saying as much, but that's a pretty funny thing to say considering that it happened to chess many years ago already, and chess did not die at all. So that's a funny thing. And yes, it's great. It was great for Go because it got a lot of people interested in Go just because of that event, and I think we need those events to give life to Go. I've seen many people who said that they can't can't get to Dawn level and want to give up. What I feel is that as long as you believe in yourself and continue to have a passion for Go, you will definitely get there no matter how old you are. Of course, having a proper teacher is important, but as long as you have those two things, you will definitely find one way or the other. Also, it depends on what your objective for playing Go is. If your objective is to get to Dawn level eventually, then sure, go for it. Just do step by step and don't set too high of a goal immediately. If you just want to enjoy the game, you are very much welcome to play Happy Go together too. Yep, it's exactly where I stand. And although I really enjoy playing Go, that is definitely, I'm definitely in the camp of I want to get to Dawn level eventually, and you know, I don't know how long that'll take. Maybe it'll be my lifetime. I just hope to get it eventually, and hopefully the ranks don't inflate again and again and make it impossible for me, but that's a different conversation altogether. I once asked a question to a teacher saying like, or a stronger player, whoa, yeah, like I'm just a Q player, right? So I don't understand this very well. And I just kind of said that as like a little blurb as context to what I'm saying, and they were like, you need to stop saying that. Like, there's no difference between Q players and Dawn players. You just, you know, you guys all are the same. Like, you just have to work at it, and there's nothing that Dawn players can do that you can't do, right? And that really opened my eyes, like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking of myself as just a Q player. I should be thinking of myself as a Go player and just try to do the best I can to learn what I'm learning. So yeah, thanks for writing in again, Sadaharu. Will Mungas writes, this is a really good video for both Go and generally dealing with adversity. So this is again with the Learn Helplessness episode. One thing I'd like to add is about AI recommendations. In the AI era, we can find solid win percentages / point values for pretty much any move in any situation. And the AI will also show us the best move. People generally seem to take this as, here is the perfect way to play, and obsess over finding that best move. Right, that's, I mean, common sense, right? The AI puts the best move down, you're like, that's how I need to play. Let's see what else you have to say. I think this is the wrong way to interpret these suggestions. The fascinating thing is that AI will give surprisingly close values even for rather outlandish-looking alternative moves. If you can find one or two of the moves the AI considers in the top 5 or so, barring a major mistake, I think people should actually take this as encouraging. I see it not as the AI showing us the perfect play, but rather the AI showing us that it doesn't matter that much either way. We have the freedom and creativity to choose which of the several nearly equal moves most appeals to us, and to me, that's beautiful. Well said, and another thing I would add to that is the inherent human aspect of the game, and the fact that the game feels so much like a conversation. It involves two psychologies coming together and competing in a battle of wits, and I think that matters a lot too. So in context of what the two of you know and what the two of you are sharing with each other in terms of what you guys value on the board, I think that story is very important, and trying to just inject AI moves into the whole thing is not necessarily the natural way to play Go. And that's why I guess AI moves often don't look very natural. Also, the AI suggestion, like as you said, it's not always the only suggestion, right? There are many moves out there that could compete with that AI move. It matters what the temperature of the game is, and what I mean by temperature is how urgent a certain move is in that board state. If it's a low temperature position, that means pretty much like anything goes. Like, oh, there are many things that you can do as long as you get something out there in the center, you know, that's going to give you like, you know, that's going to keep the board state the way it is. But then there are other situations where something's going to die if you don't move, if you don't make that move, and the AI will also say that's the blue move. But in those two different situations, the AI move is correct in the second situation. In this first situation, it's like a suggestion almost. And it's like, really getting into the weeds of like what's the super optimal, but it's really not important for us humans to be worrying about. Thanks for writing in. And then Elsa Loran says, regarding the wedge move in game 4, So the wedge move in Game 4 is the famous AlphaGo versus Lee Sedol move. The one that Lee Sedol made that defeated AlphaGo pretty much. In hindsight, the move was not good, but in the moment, it was a great move that beat AlphaGo, as it was not able to respond correctly. Humanity did beat the machines with the move. There are two extremes when playing: pure random play, where it is entirely up to luck who wins; omniscient play, where the perfect move is played each turn. This will result in an even game, and the winner will always win with 0.5 points due to Komi, assuming that the value is correct. The Komi value will be the deciding factor. When humans play, we play somewhere in between the extremes, and machines do the same. Both are not omniscient. There are weaknesses and luck involved. The skill and weakness of the opponent is part of playing a winning move. The move might not be good from the omniscient perspective, but in the moment, it is a winning move. Thank you for putting that into words. That is definitely what I was trying to say in that episode. The opponent is a crucial part of the game that you're playing. You're not playing this you're not trying to find the answers to a test or an exam. You are playing an opponent who has weaknesses just like you. And the aim of the game, I think, it's not always great to try to beat your opponent by always making the move that will probe at their weaknesses. I think as Go player students, we like to study the moves and try to play the best move in each position, and that's the way we approach the game. But ultimately, this is a one-on-one game with an opponent that you have to defeat some way or another. And one of those ways is when they have a weakness like AlphaGo did, where it kind of spazzed out because of the wedge move, and that was a legitimate way to defeat AlphaGo. And so yes, you're in complete agreement with me here on that front. And then the point about what I wanted to say here was the omniscient play. So that's a really interesting idea already. The omniscient play, where if you have two omniscient beings, like AI is already great, but it's not omniscient. It's not perfect. Go isn't solved, right? I don't think it's possible to solve Go in this universe. But let's say we did solve Go. Let's say somehow we used multi-universe processing and solved Go with some kind of crazy computer. And this computer knows the optimal move, perfect move for every situation, and you pit this computer against itself. What happens? Does one player win with 0.5 points due to Komi, or is it a forced, unlimited, repeating situation? Who knows? Who knows what the ultimate result of the game is? I like to believe that 0.5 Komi is actually even, and that somehow white and black are even in that situation, even though that 0.5 is supposed to guarantee a winner. That's what I hope that. I don't know. I think someone else could maybe think about this more and explain to me what the implications are. But I like to say that the Komi value that we've settled on is the ultimate even value, and that it's actually an even game. I could be wrong, but that's what I like to believe for now. Thanks for writing in. That was an interesting thing to read. So the question of the week this week is: what are all the areas that you've been studying so that you can holistically improve at Go? Have you been focusing just on one thing? Have you just been playing games? Have you just been doing Sumego? Or have you been kind of doing a large variety of different types of study? And then what are your experiences with those approaches? Have they paid off for you? Are you stuck because of it? Have you tried branching out? I'd love to know. So if you want to share your thoughts on that question, or if you have a Go story to share, or have a question of your own, leave a comment, or you can email me directly at starpointpaduk@gmail.com. That's starpointpaduk@gmail.com. If you're a YouTube listener, I would greatly appreciate a like and a subscribe if you haven't already. If you're a podcast listener, reviews and ratings also help. A very special thank you to James B. and Tristan for supporting Starpoint. If you want to support the show in any capacity, you can go to ko-fi.com/starpointpaduk, that's Ko-fi, or go peruse some Starpoint merch at store.starpointpaduk.com. So this closing joke was sent in by a listener by the name of Silver. You might have heard from him in a different listener mail before. A Go enthusiast says to his partner, "Darling, would you play Go with me?" Silence. "Honey?" Silence. "Oh, I see, you're asleep." As a Go enthusiast, you often witness different methods of others to use to escape a game of Go. They either play dead or pretend to be sleeping. Anything goes as long as they can avoid playing Go. This is kind of like a depressing, dry style humor. I like it, and I unfortunately I can relate somewhat. My fiance is not usually in the mood for playing Go. Hopefully, I can convince her to play a game with me soon. Thanks for listening. Keep playing Go.